For most Black Americans, especially those in the South, the front porch isn't just part of the entry into the house. It is the place we enter community. It's not just the comfort or safety we experience there, but it's where we do some people watching and good reflection. On the front porch is where we tell the truth with a little sweetener and an awesome time along the way. We take what we learn and we act. On this episode, we discuss all things related to youth, education, community, and the politics of people.
Hey, good people. Welcome back to On the Front Porch with KaCey. One, let me apologize. I know we missed last week, and I had a good reason. One, I needed some rest, but two, there's a lot happening. Also, understand why people record multiple episodes ahead of time so that you don't have this delay, right? But I am very deliberate about why I choose to record the week that a podcast is going to be released. Because for me, it's important to have a very authentic response to timely and relevant issues that are happening in our community, in society, in our world. And last week was super busy for me. Good things, hectic things, stressful things. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that today too. I'm currently in Virginia Beach, which is where I was born and raised. And I know folks hear me talk a lot about my Gullah Geechee heritage and roots. And that is by way of my daddy, who was born and raised in Charleston, South Carolina, and Mount Pleasant. And we would visit often, so I got a chance to really be engulfed fully into what it meant to be a Geechee girl. My father never erased who he was, so much to the point that when my friends would call and my daddy would answer the phone, he would immediately get the dial tone because my friends didn't know how to talk to my daddy because they couldn't understand anything that he was saying. From the foods we ate, like fish head soup, or in the 80s, people in Virginia weren't really eating okra soup or red rice or stuffed flounder or eating any and everything that came up out of the sea. And so I was a little girl eating raw oysters and understanding what all of that meant. But anyway, I'm home in Virginia Beach and I'm here helping my mom with some things. And there is an incident, right, that is happening, a crisis, really, not even an incident, in Jackson, Mississippi. It is the capital of the state, and they're in a water crisis, not even just a water shortage where you can't water your lawn this week or be mindful about watering your plants in your cars. Literally, people cannot water their bodies. They can't ingest the water. They have now been told that as the repairs are happening to the plant, to shower with your mouth closed, right? Is that serious? For some people, it's like, well, if I have to shower with my mouth closed, I may be fearful of even getting in the water. And this is where the difference between being afraid because of fear and having a very real response to danger. And folks are galvanizing all over the country. And I bring this up because our organization also has a program called Hey Hydrate, which was birthed out of the response that the young men that we serve had to how the city was essentially responding to them. And so we have cases of this water at our programming space in Atlanta. And there was a clarion call by a fellow sister in the work. And she put on her social media that her organization was going to send a truck down to Jackson, Mississippi. And for those who wanted to donate cases of water, they could. And so our organization decided to donate cases. I really wish we were in a position to donate more than what we did, but we wanted to make sure we did something, right? And as I thought about being in position to donate cases of water that has been designed for us to develop revenue from, to fund the program that these young men are a part of, and essentially pay them for the services that they provide through this entrepreneurial endeavor, I also understood the privilege and the blessing in being in position to even donate the water at all. There's this quote that I recently came across, and I may not say it verbatim, but basically it was the idea of care being a product of power. And you may wonder, what does that mean? How does that fit in this? Hopefully, as individuals, as humans, we have some level of empathy that we extend to other people in their time of need. Because hopefully we will want empathy extended to us, even for those who say they don't care about people's opinions. They don't care if no one cares about them. Deep down, if we're honest with ourselves, we all want at least one person to care, to empathize, to extend some grace, some love, some good thoughts, some good intentions towards us. And so as individuals, as humans, we have the ability, well, that's debatable for some, but most of us have the ability to be able to extend that kind of care. But care as a product or an affect of power is more so around the idea of systems, right? And entities being able to express the kind of care that one needs in order to continue to be functioning members of society. And this is why conversations around healthcare is important, be it Medicaid and Medicare, prescription drug costs, reproductive rights for women. All of those things are embodied in care as an affect, right? Not cause and effect, but something that comes because of a power structure. And the idea that those power structures can then dangle care in front of you as a means of privilege or to ascertain your station in life, right? Because not everyone has access to ethical quality care. In the case of Jackson, Mississippi, right? And we can go back a few years to Flint, Michigan. But in the case of Jackson right now, can't ascertain because everybody's in the same boat, so to speak. And so to be in a position to have the privilege and the power to make a contribution to the care that a group of people need is a humbling thing if you understand really the weight of the power that you have when you can administer that type of care. I want to take that a step further. Part of the reason why I missed last week was my co-founder and I traveled with what I call the delegation, right? These people who have literally wrapped their arms around the work that we do, literally and figuratively and financially, might I add. They traveled with us to accompany two young men from the program to have an experience that they thought was never going to be a part of their story. And we traveled to a Midwestern city where these young men had never flown on a plane before. And they stayed in a 4-star hotel. And people were looking to hear from them, right? People were clamoring for their attention and to hear their thoughts and hanging on every single word. And even as they told their own story, and not a story of struggle, right? Not a story of poverty, but the story of how those things may be true in their life, but how an opportunity, how a system of care, how folks who literally understood the privilege and the blessing of the power structure that they had and showed them some type of care, allowed them to be in a space where they could use their own agency and be empowered by their own voice. And that has resulted into them now being placed on a trajectory that's not only going to change their lives, but could potentially, well, let me run that back, that will impact the lives of their peers and others that come behind them. And that at 16 and 18 years old, they have tools that grown, fully matured adults are fighting over in order to position themselves financially. And to have the skills to monetize so that they never have to worry about money again. I realized that they would have never been in that position if I had not placed myself in a position of wanting to extend care beyond my humanness and understood the power structure of an entity exhibiting and expressing care. And I know this sounds nebulous in a sense, but I think if we really sit and think about it, it makes perfect sense. Because a lot of what we need can't be given to us through one person's desire to want to see our lives better. It requires this web, right? It requires this network mapping, where different parts plug into different people, different entities, different parts of the strategy in order for you to get essentially the very thing that you need in order for you to embrace the care, but then also do something with it. And so last week was a whirlwind. We had power packed 36 to 40 hours. And then we came right back into a VIP day for our funders and a ribbon cutting and a grand opening for our programming space. And then we rolled into getting back into the swing of things. And then here I am in Virginia doing my best to understand the network here that my mother's plugged into to also extend that system of care to her. But then I also wondered, how do we curate and facilitate that for ourselves? I know many people who get recharged by being in solitude. And I believe that there's something important about learning how to sit with yourself. And in the words of one of my ITC professors, Dr. Willie Godman, the idea of learning how to be who you be. And you only learn how to be who you be by being by yourself, right? And so there's something very spiritual and divine about sitting with yourself to really understand the nuances of what you need and how you're going to position yourself to be this receptacle of good things coming, but also resources, skills, talents, opportunities, right? Direction, guidance, healing, the nurturing that people want to give to you. But you can't stay there. And so what I've learned is that even in this system of care that you create for yourself, the idea of understanding who your network is, what I like to call my circle of 100, right? People who keep it authentic with me, real with me, tell me A to Z, right? They don't stop at F because G through M is going to hurt my feelings and then pick back up at N all the way through from start to finish. You have to create that, and then you have to be willing to hear from those folks in order for you to really be fully plugged in to the web, to the network, in order for you to fully receive what it is that you need in order to utilize and to use the care to get you to your next level, to get you to your next station, to get you to your next destination, right? Because what I find is that when you stay too confined amongst yourself, you subconsciously begin to tell yourself the things you want to hear, right? You begin to understand only in a way that makes sense for your thought pattern, for your paradigm, where your comfort and discomfort lie. Because we can say all day that I'm okay with being challenged. I'm okay with being uncomfortable. But even that has a boundary, right? Even that has a limit. And subconsciously, because of survival instincts, you're never going to push yourself past even that boundary of discomfort. Whatever that line is, you're never going to cross it on your own. So being plugged into a system of care, right? And for that system to understand its privilege of the power to be able to effectuate change in your life through care, you have to be mindful of who you allow that system to be. You have to be mindful of who you allow those people to be and the part they play in your life. But you need those people. Those people are necessary. They are a must. And if you don't have those people, and if you don't consult them, then there lies the challenge. You know, scripture tells us that there is safety in counsel. There's safety in the multitude of counsel. Multitude meaning more, many, more than one at least, more than two. Does not mean everybody has that privilege. But you definitely need folks, plural. Because what I've also learned is that people who care the most about you are rarely the most honest with you. Even for those that have learned how to say things that you don't like, even for them, there's going to be a limit because people who love you still want to see the best in you, and they're always going to speak to that. This is why it's important to have a therapist, even when there's nothing wrong. Have a life coach, to have a mentor, someone who does not have a dog in the fight, someone who is not your personal friend, that they're so concerned about the best of you that they don't speak to the worst in you. And so this idea of mentors in light of a therapist, I do think that everybody needs to at least know a therapist. Now, there's some of us who need to have therapists on speed dial. There are some of us who understand the beauty in having regular therapy sessions. And I do advocate that everyone should have a mental health checkup, like a clinical mental health checkup at least once a year. Get your blood work done, right? Mental health is not, or mental illness is not just about feeling sad and depressed or having suicidal ideation or hallucinations or delusions, or sometimes it is a chemical imbalance and your blood work can determine that. Could be, a deficiency in certain vitamins and nutrients that your body needs and is impacting serotonin and dopamine and cortisol in your brain. So anyway, if you're not going to have a therapist, a spiritual advisor, a life coach, at the minimum, a mentor. The folks that I've seen be most impacted by mentors are folks who have a mentor and then who also mentor, right? So it should be this triad in a sense where someone's pouring into you, but then yet you're pouring into someone else. Because the best way to retain information is to teach that which you have learned. So when you learn things and then you don't teach, you're less likely to really implement those things into your life. So as we keep on this thought around a system of care, and care being an affect of power in a sense, right? Your ability to access care when we're talking about systems the strategy of care, the network of care, the entity of care, right? Not someone's personal concern. So when we're thinking about care in that regard, it's important that you understand that you also begin to build a habit of knowing what part you play also in that network and building that for someone else. A lot of medical companies have moved to this system. Most of my doctors are a part of the Morehouse School of Medicine, and I can go to one doctor and possibly be referred for something else. But I don't have to go out the network. And not even so much the network of my insurance company, I don't even have to leave the network of Morehouse School of Medicine doctors. Have a doctor that is a part of the Emory healthcare system. Same thing. When there are referrals that have to be made there, it's usually another doctor that's within the Emory healthcare system. What I like about these systems of care is that it allows for these folks to have a more plausible time to have communication about the best way to address whatever ailment or situation that I have come to them for. I saw that firsthand when I had a cyst on the back of my neck and I went to a doctor at Morehouse, and something happened before I could get back to that same doctor for a follow-up. And so I made a call, and another doctor in the Morehouse system's like, I see your chart, right? Didn't have to give authorization. I didn't have to send a fax or an email. I didn't have to go pick up something and take it to another doctor. Literally, he could pull up my medical record and see everything because they were plugged in to the system, and was able to literally text the doctor who was lead on my case to ask a question so that they could confer in order to give me the best advice as to how I needed to move forward. I understand the privilege in that, right? Because I also look at family members that have to fight to just find someone to even take them seriously, that they are hurting, that they are ailing, right? And that their care is so disjointed that they haven't been able to get well because everybody is saying something different and everybody has a different approach, and there's no synergy there. There's no cohesiveness there. And so the person who is ailing isn't getting worse, they're actually getting better. What does that mean, KaCey? It's the same thing for our communities. It is the same thing for how we serve whatever group of people we have been called, sent to, assigned to. That when we have no synergy in what needs to happen, we don't help the community get better. In fact, what we do and what we have seen and what we are seeing is that the community is getting worse, right? I pray fervently and often for our new mayor in Atlanta, because I believe wholeheartedly that he is a good person who has pure and, dare I say, spiritual intentions on what this city can be. But there's also an uptick in violence. And I wonder how, as a leader, will he address that and quote unquote fix it? But then I stopped myself in my tracks because I realized that while he is the mayor, it is not his job alone to curb and to decrease the violent acts that are happening in the city. That is a breakdown of the system of care. I see it even with the young men that we serve, if we're not all on the same page, it causes confusion, division, and the care gets disjointed. And instead of moving them closer to the goal, at best we hold them in a standstill because they're hearing differing messages. Now, everybody doesn't have to communicate the message the same way, right? We all have different roles. Understand I'm a nurturer, right? Understand that for some of them, they look at me not just as Miss KaCey, but as mama and as auntie and as big sister. And in nurturing them, there's also times where there's a very hard no, right? And then there are times where I have to explain the no. There are times where I offer grace. There are times where I have to say, let me sit with that. Let me figure out the best way forward for this. But even in that, the other people who are part of the system of care, right, may also be challenging them around an area of responsibility and accountability and maturation. And so while I do understand there has to be nurturing as a part of that, because a lot of times what we see in our community too, especially when it comes to boys, is that we've never modeled for them empathy displayed towards them. Because we say, oh, you're a boy, man up, toughen up. And then we wonder why, for those of us who want to marry men, we have a hard time finding folks who are comfortable and confident in sharing emotion without it being looked at as a weakness. Because nope, he was a boy, man up, toughen up, ain't no softness, ain't no grace. But then it's like, that young man is going to encounter your daughter one day. And do you not want your daughter to feel protected by the man she chooses to be with because he knows when to offer softness and grace and display of emotion, and to feel safe in that? But as I run that back, we also have to make it safe for our young men to display qualities of femininity or softness in terms of how they are feeling, how they express themselves, without us having to emasculate them and assume something that may not even be true for them, simply because we've made this very distinct line in the sand, this dichotomy. I say all the time, it's both and. For me, it's never either or. Life is never either or. Life is never yes or no. It may be a little more yes, a little more no, but it's never a black or white situation. Life does not function that way. And so, even as I talk about this example of crime in Atlanta, and how, yes, our mayor is there to lead us and to think through strategy and put things in place and resources and make decisions that get us closer. It is the webbing, the network, the system of care that is going to do the work to have that strategy become a thing. And so I want us to really just be considerate of the fact that in order for our communities to grow, in order for our communities to really see some market change, right, we have to be willing to understand, one, a system of care is a privilege, it is an affect of power. Where do we see ourselves in that, both as the receiver of it and as a facilitator of it? And then two, what kind of soft place do we create for all parties, for all people, to be able to really take full advantage of that system of care so that they can then replicate it for themselves as well? I know the work that I do is not hard. It is not easy. It's very hard. It's draining. I'll be honest. Had a conversation with a new friend. And I love having conversations with people that I am connected to do this work. And I leave feeling full in my spirit because they understand who I am, what I am, why I am, and they're able to speak to that. And one of the things I fully realized in the conversation on yesterday was that I used to fight with God and fight myself because I felt like I didn't have any sexy gifts, right? I suffer with imposter syndrome. I think I mentioned that to you all before. I see people that I know, like literally have their phone numbers in my cell phone that if I text them 8 times out of 10, my number is saved, or at least in a quick conversation, when I say who I am, they know who I am. And I see them doing these phenomenal things, these beautiful things, these things on grand stages, right? And part of me is like, I'm rooting for them. And I don't covet the spotlight because I also know some of their journey, and I would not want to do or go through anything that they've experienced in order to get to where they are. But part of me feels like the work that I'm doing is as important, but it's not going to put me on a main stage, right? So I say that because to the point of the conversation yesterday and the care that I received from someone that is plugged into a system, but also understands his power and the position that he has, and who thought enough of me and enough of his call to speak into my life. What I realized is that no, my gift is not sexy, right? My gift is not one that is easily marketable, right? I tease people all the time because I'm proud of it. Like, there's very few people in the world that can say that they sang background vocals, right, for Outkast. And if you need to know, it's Bombs Over Baghdad on the Aquemini album. But I was a part of a group, right, at Morris Brown, a gospel choir. And I remember the day Andre came and sat in the back of Fountain Hall on the 3rd floor and listened to us practice. And then the offer came for us to come and record that song. So I say that, brag a little bit, right? Be a little bodacious. But I say that to say I can hold a tune, but I'm never going to want a Grammy, right? I'm never going to be one that draws people to a concert, right? Because of my vocal ability. I am not one that is, an artist where, like, my fambo, right, Nasir can take a picture and draw it and it look realistic. Or like my cousin Alicia, right? I don't have that ability to be an artist, to draw. I can hem your pants, but I can't sew like Miss Dale Solomon, right? Watch out for her and that name. I can't put together a whole outfit. I can't, say, let me sew and design this dress because I had a vision of something. I'm taking notes of the things that I love so that one day I can hire a seamstress to make things that are custom fit for me, right? But I can't sew. I'm not a graphic designer like Heather, right? I can't hear somebody say something that they want conveyed visually and give them something beyond their wildest dreams, right? I'm not going to play the drums like Kevin or the organ like Herbie or my cousin Lamont, right? Yeah, I'm a minister, but I'm probably not going to preach heaven down like my Uncle Wendell. Daddy was a carpenter who could build from the ground up and build to scale without an architect plan, right? But the gift that I have is rare. And I don't think most people understand the gift of being an empath when you are able to be responsible and managing the emotions that you absorb from other people, and you take it as power to figure out how to then give them that same thing back in order to empower them to change their own lives. I do have the gift of speaking and of communicating and being able to speak life into you. I have the gift of being able to stand flat-footed in front of a group of 5,000 people with a microphone in my hand and be unmoved. You can give me a topic and tell me, KaCey, I need you to talk for 10 minutes about it. And I guarantee you there's somebody in that room that's going to be inspired to do something about whatever the topic is, whether it's in the affirmative or not, with very little notice. I understand the gift of storytelling, right? I also understand the gift of being able to put things in perspective and to call things in and to create something that can absolutely change your life if you let it. And while that is something that may not make me $1 million, right? It is something that I've learned to embrace wholly and allow it to give me power so that I can continue serving those who feel disempowered. And for those who don't feel disempowered, but who've literally had their power stripped from them. My gift is to find my way into rooms, not to always make you feel good, but to speak the truth of the matter, to speak the truth that while we do STEM, and while we have a water program, and while we mentor, the real work that I do is lessening the effects of poverty that Black youth experience on the west side of Atlanta. And that's more than enough for me, because I know what it means to be fully embraced and engulfed in a system of care. And I understand the power that I carry being able to create that system and facilitate it for somebody else. So thank you for joining me today on the front porch. I promise that I won't leave you hanging again. Thank you to everybody who tunes in, to everybody who shares. Y'all tell somebody about this. I am also learning how to promote myself better, brand myself, push myself out there. Got a lot of stuff coming down the pipeline. And I want you all to share this podcast with somebody that you know hasn't listened to it before. Follow me on social at I am KaCey Venning or KaCey for Atlanta Youth. I'm on Twitter. Follow me. Stay plugged in. And let me know what topics y'all want to hear me speak on. I am preparing for this next phase for some really amazing special guests to join me on the front porch. Stay tuned to Q1 of 2023 because we're going to elevate this podcast. We're going to take it to the next level as well. So I'm excited. So thanks again for being here, and I'll holler at you soon.